So I turned 30 this week. Oh wait, if Sunday is the first day of a week, then that would be this week. If Sunday is the last day of a week, then it was last week. Well, anyway, had a simple celebration.
你要吹先是吗？我来做。
必须。
我的感觉切下去就。
Nothing too grand and special or fancy. COVID cases are still spiking in my country as well as city, so we have to, do things in moderation. In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 lessons that I learned before joining the 30s Club, or lessons that I wish I have learned earlier, or things that I wish I would have done. Of course, these are not the only lessons per se, but these are the most important money or finance related lessons that I would like to share with you. So let's begin with the first lesson. Learn investing and trading as soon as possible. Now, I started learning about investing when I was 19 years old and trading when I was entering 22. This is definitely not too late. Well, to some people, it is early. I've seen people who already started their journey even before like 18 years old. Well, even Warren Buffett started investing in a super early age. Nonetheless, I have no regrets on when did I actually get started in investing and trading, although things could start earlier. I have no regrets on the compromises that I have made during these days, like during my uni life when my course mates were spending their time enjoying their uni life here and there, spending time partying while I was reading books and researching ways to make money from businesses and investments. I even started some part-time businesses while I was still studying for my bachelor degree. Definitely, there are many compromises that one has to make in order to achieve like different kind of financial results in the 20s. But looking back, what I have been through, I would say that every compromise or sacrifice that I have made has been paid off. Yes, sometime come and think of it, not being able to enjoy my uni life to the fullest is kind of like a regret, but hey, being able to take a last-minute vacation without the need of applying for leaves or having an afternoon nap whenever I feel like napping is actually a luxury at my age. Now, being able to learn and start investing early will give a person a lot of advantages. Time itself is a huge advantage. When you start early, you have more energy to learn, you have no life commitments just yet, you can afford to take more risks, and more importantly, you have more time to be wrong and start everything from scratch again if that's needed, as compared to people who are already in their like 30s or even late 20s, whereby we have to take care of different kinds of life commitments. Now, some people might say when we are in our early 20s, we do not have much money to invest and it is better to start investing when we have the money. Now, the cruel reality is, at least from what I have seen, many people would keep committing in different life commitments, be it cars, houses, and so on, if they never commit in investing progressively. To a lot of people, investing requires like a big lump sum amount to actually get started. It is like, I got a pay raise, I can afford to get a new car now, I can buy a new house now. If I'm lucky enough to save a bit, then I will save, hoping that one day I would save up until an amount that I define is good enough to start investing. And then I will go around and ask people who have been investing and say, hey, I have X amount of money, how should I get started in investing? Great investment do not work out that way most of the time. It is just like a car or a house, you need to pick it up as a commitment. And I would say it is easiest to pick up during our early 20s compared to committing a house or a car. If you are able to pick it up as a commitment during your early 20s, then a lot of things would work out well in the later years. Sure, when we are in our early 20s, the capital that we have are very limited unless you are born with a silver spoon. At least I'm not. My dad passed away underinsured when I was just 4 years old, and my mom has to work pretty hard to put food on the table. I do not have the luxury of getting things I want to have in my childhood, so working part-time has been a norm in my life ever since I was still in the high school. So after leaving high school, I got study loans for my tertiary study, and I actually brought working part-time went to one notch higher. I still work part-time when the previous companies I work for have events going on, and on top of that, side hustling has been the new normal in my life back then, starting 18 years old. And I think nowadays, side hustle has also been a new normal for a lot of people, especially millennials and Generation Z. Never underestimate the $50 or $100 that we can afford to invest when we are still working part-time in our college years. It means really a lot. That's easily a grand worth of investment in a year while people are still partying. First, it is a small commitment that would eventually become a habit. If you make this a habit to invest a portion of your income, you will feel uncomfortable or guilty if you miss it for a month or so. And when you graduate from college and get your first job, you can start raising the bar to, let's say, investing $200 or $300 a month, which can easily translate into maybe $2,000 to $4,000 worth of investment in a single year. If you keep this as a commitment, after 3 to 5 years, you can easily reach the 5-figure mark without you trying hard to save like $10,000. Now, of course, these are excluding the potential return that you could possibly get from your investment. For example, ETFs such as the S&P 500 Index ETF is actually one of the greatest investment vehicles to get started. If you are just starting out in investment, watch this video. I'll link it at my top right corner at the YouTube card, whereby I outline ETFs that beginner investor can start investing in. And because you're investing your money in your early 20s, you will pick up a lot of investment or trading knowledge progressively. When you are already in your mid-20s, you have two massive advantages compared to the average. So first, you already have some knowledge and understanding when it comes to investment. And second, you have like 10 grand or even more that you have saved up and invested down the road. Like it or not, the amount of people who are in their mid-20s and never actually invested anything in their early 20s, it's relatively tough for them to jump directly into any investment with just a few $1,000s, not even to say like $10,000. So a lot of time they would need to go through the process that you may have already gone through when you're in your college or early 20s, which is what I always call wealth accumulation. My journey is never smooth when it comes to investing or even trading. My results were okay or mediocre to some people, but the biggest advantage that I had is actually time. I started early, and that's why I had more time to learn, make mistakes, and also try new things. So start as soon as possible, and now is always better than later. Alright, so let's move on to lesson number 2, which is to push myself a little bit further in making active income. Now, knowing how to invest is just the first part of the equation. The second part of the equation is actually having the money or having the extra money to invest. One little regret is that I wish I have pushed myself a little bit further when it comes to bringing in more income so that I could accumulate wealth faster and let the compound interest work a little more. Let me illustrate with one of the most mainstream ways. Assuming in your early 20s, you invested $200 every month for, let's say, 5 years. With an average annual return of 8%, you will get close to $15,000 worth of investment after 5 years. Now, if you put additional $50 every single month, making it $250 a month, after 5 years, you will end up with around $18,000 to $19,000, which is definitely giving you a better edge. Let's say for the next 5 years, you are able to put $500 a month into the same investment. The first option will give you $59,000 worth of investments portfolio, and the second option, which is the one whereby you push yourself a little bit harder, it will make you end up with $64,000, close to $65,000 worth of portfolio. So for the first 5 years, they are the first option, whereby you put $200 a month, and second option whereby you push yourself a little bit further and put $250 every single month, which is $50 more every month. The difference of portfolio value by the end of 5 years is $3,749, whereby your additional capital was just $3,000. So $50 a month extra times 12 months a year times 5 years will give you $3,000. So that's the extra capital that you have put in for the first 5 years. For the next 5 years, if you continue this portfolio with $500 a month with the proceeds of investment of the first 5 years, the difference between the first option and the second option will be $5,585. And the initial capital of this difference in return is actually the additional $3,000 of the first 5 years, which was the effort of $50 a month, okay, every single month for the first 5 years. Now, I'm joining the 30s club. There is definitely some difference when it comes to the amount of energy I have compared to my, let's say, early 20s. So this is actually one of the things that I wish I could have pushed myself a little bit harder back then. And I just want to say that side hustling, side jobs or gigs have never been so easy and widely available. Now back then, we did not have many options apart from traditional ways of working part-time jobs at a premise or working as a part-time sales jobs like insurance, mutual funds, or some kind of like direct sales or MLM. Nowadays, even my friend who drives Grab, Uber in some countries, for only part-time, and he can also manage to pocket an average of 3,000 ringgit or $700 of additional income in a single month on top of his full-time job. I know, there are definitely some compromises that you will need to make in order to achieve this. There are always opportunity costs when it comes to every single choice we make in our life. But as I enter 30 right now, looking back to those days, the compromises and sacrifices definitely worth it. Less socializing in my 20s for sure, but it has trained me to spend my precious time only in quality social occasions instead of just sitting down every other days with friends gossiping and minds other people's businesses, and it is like spending my precious time in ways that are not that productive or positive. Alright, let's move on to the third lesson. Now, before mentioning this lesson, I wanted to give you some context first because not everyone would fall into this situation. Some might even find it tough to understand, but I do know that some people would find this helpful. Due to the reason that I started early and managed to accumulate a decent amount of portfolio value, not really a huge portfolio per se, but a decent number for it to grow and compound itself. And I also get some side incomes, including speaking gigs that I have gotten. And these side incomes have allowed me to survive without much needing to withdraw from my investment portfolio. Now, everything doesn't seem to be an issue until I wanted to get a mortgage loan for a house. So, the third lesson that I have learned is to build at least one source or one stream of consistent income. This is actually a hard lesson. What I'm about to share next is going to be relevant and accurate for Malaysians who are based in Malaysia. It might be less accurate or less relevant for people who are not in Malaysia, which is my home country and where I'm based right now. But I believe that banks around the world would treat things quite similarly to a certain extent. So here's the thing. A monthly income of, for example, 5,000 ringgit is not the same as an annual income of 60,000 ringgit in many aspects. A monthly income of 8,000 ringgit is not going to be the same as an annual income of 96,000 ringgit. But here I would like to particularly discuss about how the banks actually see us. So let's say 60,000 ringgit. You can either work for a job and get a monthly salary of 5,000 ringgit, or for people who are self-employed or doing your own businesses, it might be somewhere around this figure as well, maybe sometimes like 4,000 ringgit a month, sometimes 6,000 ringgit a month, but around there. However, there are some industry or business nature that do not fall into this nature. For example, for certain types of business, they could be making around 20,000 ringgit this month, then zero income for the next couple of months, and by the end of the year, they have another income of, say, 40,000 ringgit, which also gives them an annual income of 60,000 ringgit. Now, banks typically don't like to give loans for people who fall into this category, and I fall into this category. For example, I don't get speaking gigs every single month. And also for other businesses that I am doing, I don't get the income on a monthly basis. So I guess you might have already get the logic behind what I'm trying to tell. So yeah, I wouldn't get into the details right over here. As for incomes that are earned from investing and trading stocks and other financial products, these incomes are not being recognized by the banks. If you make hundreds of thousands of capital gain trading stocks or cryptocurrency in a year, if you do not have other sources of income, you wouldn't be able to get a loan, not even a credit card in most cases, because incomes from stock or cryptocurrency investing and trading are perceived as high risk and inconsistent by the banks. So if you make, let's say, millions in flipping NFTs, you wouldn't be able to get a home mortgage of, say, 250,000 to be approved without the need of supporting documents or guarantors. There are definitely ways to make it, but to be honest, things are quite complicated, troublesome, and case-to-case basis depending on which banks you are dealing with. So the way banks see me is a person who does not have a consistent source of income. Investing and trading incomes are not being recognized as my income, and it can only be a supporting document, which in my experience is not going to be very useful as well, comparing to another person who works for a company and get monthly income very consistently. The banks don't love people like me, but the thing is, I do have lots of love with real estate, so here's the problem. And buying properties with cash is not a wise move. If I were to use $100,000 to buy a property with cash, I'm actually much better off if I put the $100,000 into index funds, which could potentially grow by 8% every single year, and they are going to be more liquid compared to real estate. Also, I can sell call options to generate monthly cash flow for additional income without the need to worry about having no tenants. So to me, investing in properties with leverage is the way to go, which means taking some mortgage. Not even to mention that in Malaysia, we have great margin of financing compared to a lot of countries around the world. So right now, this is the thing that I'm still working on. I want banks to love me so that I can show some love to real estate. So these are the 3 lessons that I learned before 30s. Hope that you like this simple sharing. If you like this sharing, do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content and updates, turn on the notification bell so that you wouldn't miss out anything. With that said, thank you very much, and I will see you when I see you. Peace out.